Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we're not yet back in our home inside Renaissance Bank, but we will be soon. I know I keep saying that, but I think we really will be. There's progress on that front. But in the meantime, folks, we're still virtual here in Alpharetta. Looking forward to being back in our location sometime soon. In the meantime, if you are in need of a more personal experience with your bank and you crave that, yet they won't deliver, all they know how to do is give you an 800 number or some AI-generated voice, well, call Renaissance Bank. In fact, just go to renaissancebank.com, search their local offices, some 200 across the South, ready to serve you, and give them a call. And what you'll find is a live person will answer the phone. Imagine that. Make an appointment with them and go see them, and you'll be glad you did. And I say that because I have recommended people to Renaissance. I've used Renaissance. They're a terrific bunch of folks. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to turn to Lauren Hisey. And Lauren she's got her own consulting firm. It's her own name. So Lauren, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about you and tell us about how you help folks out there.
Yes. Hi, I'm Lauren Hisey. I have my business is Lauren Hisey Consulting. And what I do is I guide businesses, owners and leaders on how to rapidly and efficiently get from point A to point B so they see real progress and empowerment. And I do that through continuous improvement consulting and coaching. And I usually work with mostly medium-sized businesses. I also do work with some bigger corporations when I'm partnering with another firm.
Wow, lots there. So let's talk about, first of all, continuous improvement. That sounds pretty strenuous to me. Let's talk a little bit about what that is and how you help companies implement that.
So continuous improvement is, I like to use continuous improvement instead of saying Lean Six Sigma or any type of that methodology out there. So continuous improvement is just an umbrella for all these different methodologies that's really going in and uncovering what's going on in the business and what's causing you to either have rising cost or causing your revenue to go down, or you have bad employee satisfaction, or your customers aren't satisfied. I go in and help figure out what those problems are and then help provide solutions for that. And
I guess talk about the causes of these problems. I mean, why do they exist? Is it just a lack of attention to the business? Is just the business changes over time, which all businesses do? I mean, why do these problems exist?
So a lot of times these problems can start just to happen just because businesses evolve over time. Customer demand can change, or we've seen that things change drastically within this year. So it's been really interesting to see how businesses are handling what's going on in the market and what's going on in the just in general in the marketplace. So a lot of times when you're seeing your costs going up or your revenue going down, or your customers or your employees aren't satisfied, those are just symptoms of the problems. So a lot of times it could just be the culture that's not good, or maybe the processes are bad. I've also even seen, I like your intro where talked about, instead of talking to an AI, talking to a real human. I've seen too where companies are throwing technology at the problem instead of trying to figure out what's really causing the issues. And a lot of times it comes down to the processes may just be bad or old, or maybe a company is growing and then they just can't figure out how to get to that next level because they're using something that used to work, in the old days and that's not working now. So it really just goes in and seeing, okay, if the process is bad, or the problems with the cost, or problems with the product itself, something bad with going on with the employees, even something as far as senior leadership just not having, not working with their employees and seeing them as real people.
Wow. A lot there. Wow.
It is. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot there. I'm wondering though, you mentioned declining revenue and rising cost are potential signs of an issue you can help with that relates to continuous improvement. But those are pretty big, wide kind of symptoms that could have a lot of different causes. I mean, how do you know that those particular symptoms are causes of a continuous improvement issue or a process issue?
Yeah, so one of the things I start to when I start talking to prospective clients, or if they already are my clients, I start to just have those normal conversations with the leaders first, understanding what's keeping them up at night. And as you start to understand what's keeping them up at night, then we start to ask a very common thing. We call it the 5 whys, right? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Almost like when you're speaking to a child, a child asks why, and you finally get to the real answer.
Yeah.
So a lot of times could just be sometimes it seems simple, but when you start asking those questions and then you start talking to the people that are actually doing the work, the frontline employees, and you start to walk the process, then we start to understand what truly is going on. So a lot of times there's mistakes going on that you may not have known about, the leaders may not have known about, because the employees are finding ways to maybe cover that up. Another is that there's firefighting going on between different departments and different things going on within the process. There could be quality issues within the process itself or within the project or service that you're providing. So it's just really getting down and just having those normal conversations without the jargon.
Right.
and just after having those conversations and walking the process and getting to know everyone and do the interviews, then you get to start to really uncover what's going on. And then while I'm uncovering that, I also allow for people to do some of their own brainstorming and to start coming up with solutions that could probably fix the problem pretty quickly instead of making it drawn out to fix it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense that people have the answers that sometimes they don't really want to necessarily acknowledge, right? That's right.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. So let's talk about the different sizes of businesses. Can your work be applied to all sizes of businesses?
Oh, sure. It definitely can. It can be applied from the small mom and pop business all the way up to, big corporations. That was my big background, was in service industry within data analytics and marketing, and also with telecommunications. So I worked for big corporations, but I've also worked with smaller accounting firms and small law firms. So I've worked with all the different spectrums, but a lot of times when it comes down to who are my clients or who I'm looking to work with, it is usually medium sized, because those are usually the ones that maybe need the most help, because they're probably trying to get to that next level, or they've tried to get to that next level and just haven't been able to get there. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to go out on my own, was to work with the medium-sized businesses instead of big corporate America all the time.
Mm. And it's a common theme among medium-sized businesses that maybe they've had years of success and they start to level off in terms of their results, and they don't know necessarily why that happened.
Exactly. And sometimes when I'm doing research for prospective clients, I go and I just go in and start looking at Indeed or looking at Google, looking at reviews. And sometimes it's interesting to see that if it is a medium-sized business, it could be very well be a family-owned business, and it's been family-owned for years. And sometimes what happens there is that I think I said at the beginning, what was working is not going to work now. And they're just trying to understand how to get out of that. And they just don't even maybe know how to get out of that. So there's different ways to approach that. And that is usually just having the conversations, and then the solutions that we come up with really just depends on what is going on in the business and where they're trying to go next.
Got it. Folks, we're here with Lauren Hisey, and she's with Lauren Hisey Consulting, her own firm, working with all sizes of businesses on continuous improvement. Lauren, I'm curious about the startup or the younger business or the mom and pop that maybe thinks, things are moving fast here. And, I don't have time for this process conversation. I got to make revenue and make things happen. What would you say to a business like that?
I get asked that a lot. Usually what I say to those is sometimes the best thing to do, especially when it comes to continuous improvement, is sometimes it's better to maybe just stop for a second. I know we're in a fast-paced world, but stop for that quick second and maybe first understand where you are today, plan out what your goal is, where you want to be in the future. But then you could develop a continuous improvement plan to help you with your business and uncover what's really keeping you stuck. So you get out of that firefighting mode, because what you described to me is very common. I consider it firefighting. They're just always going, but they're not really working in their business to help it grow. And maybe if they have employees, understanding what they can do to help with their employees. That's usually the first thing I start. And it could be something it's so very simple. And that's if I go with that approach with a smaller business, I'm usually coaching them through that instead of doing consulting. So that way I can talk them through it and walk them through it over the next few months.
Well, I think if you're engaged with a smaller company and they're asking about these questions, or a younger company, they're ahead of the game, right? Yes, they are. Relative to most startups, most mom and pops, because a lot of them don't take the time to ask the questions, maybe, right?
Right, exactly. And one of the things, if I'm just started speaking with someone, or they're just getting started, a lot of times I tell them one of the books I always recommend to startups is Lean. I think it's called Lean Startup. Now I'm drawing a blank as I'm talking to you. Uh-huh. I think it's called Lean Startup. Yeah, it is Lean Startup. It's a great book, especially for tech startups, but it gives you a basis of what Lean is and what continues to prove it, and how you can apply that to a startup or even to a small business. It's not always about being perfect. It's about starting out with a skateboard and then working your way up to that really nice Bentley or Mercedes, eventually with your product or your service. And then it gives you a chance to understand what are the true metrics you really have to have in your business to see how you're growing and what you need to do each and every day to get to your goals.
And Lauren, I wish you would talk a little. I mean, you mentioned how you interview and come in and ask questions, but let's dive in a little deeper in terms of how an engagement with you works and what happens. Somebody gets in touch. How does that conversation unfold?
Yeah, so usually if I'm being approached by a prospective client, I will I set up a 1 hour conversation with them, just a 1 free hour consultation. I'd like to do this face to face if I can. If not, in today, it's more likely going to be over Zoom for right now. And just understand. Unfortunately, it's in that hour. It's going to be more high level, but it's just having that conversation with them and understanding. Okay, I usually do ask, what is keeping you up at night? What's keeping you from moving forward in your business and where you would like to go? And when I start to ask those questions like that in that first hour, I get a sense of what's keeping them up, what's holding them back. And then maybe that's where we start to have more in the conversation that toward the end is how's that engagement with me going to look like? And that's where we determine, depending on the size of the company, so depending on the revenue, how much money they do have in their budget to spend to bring somebody like me in. And we just talk about what's the best approach. Do we do coaching or do I do consulting where I'm going in and doing a lot of the uncovering for them and then coming up with the solutions? Coaching is more just me meeting with them on a weekly basis, just coaching them through so they go and do a lot of that stuff on their own. And then we meet pretty much, it's about once a week we meet to figure out what the next steps they need to take to get them to the next level.
And how do you recommend to clients in terms of which either the coaching or the consulting that they ought to pursue with you?
Yeah, so usually if it's a consulting engagement, it's something that they feel like they need somebody to come in and roll up the sleeves and get dirty with them, and that's what I usually like to say. But it's more if they are in a space where they need to move a lot faster. So what I do is I'll go in and I do all that for them. I guide them through that. I'm partnering with them to get them through that and working with their employees to understand what's going on. And then we implement solutions to fix the root causes. If it's coaching, usually if I'm figuring out if it's coaching, it's something, a lot of times when it comes down to coaching, it could just be budget. It could be budget issues. And sometimes if they only have a certain type of budget, then that's where coaching might be a better fit for them. I've also done it where I've coached with clients. They try to do it on their own, but then they're getting stuck. So then we talk about bringing me in as a consulting engagement. And then once we're done with the consulting piece, we go back to coaching. And I've also done where consulting, once we're done, then it's kind of like I get put onto a retainer for a little while. And that's probably where the coaching comes in. And we just kind of, just to reinforce what they've learned so far and just to keep the momentum going. Sometimes it gets blended.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense that there are a lot of different ways to work with you. And that's why I wanted to uncover that. But let's, you mentioned a key phrase there at the end, which is keep this going. So what recommendations do you have for companies to really, keep those good results going? And we are talking about continuous improvement, and maybe I'm being simple-minded about this, but this sounds like ongoing therapy for my business, right? So talk more about that.
Yeah, so continuous improvement, the way I look at continuous improvement, it's sometimes people think about improvement stuff as linear. I like to think of it as circular. So meaning, yes, once you get to your final goal, you're always going to be trying to think in the future how to continue to improve. So if I think of our process, right? So as a company evolves and as their processes evolve for their services or products, things in a great world, everything just continues to work perfectly. But we all know that's not always the case, and there's always room for improvement. So I usually tell clients, let things stabilize first. And then once things start to stabilize, then you can start looking for other areas to improve it and just do, it's incremental, right? Doing improvements. A good example with that would be, especially if I'm having a client that wants to use any type of technology. So I always tell, and that's why I said earlier, I don't like throwing technology a problem. A lot of times I say, let's put technology on the back burner for now and fix, the problems that we have with the people, the process, and the culture. Get that as good as we can get it and continue to improve it. And then we start to add in the layers of technology, because I'm a big proponent that I think technology and humans and the employees should work together. I don't think technology should replace that. So that's why I said that's why I think of it, it's circular, that it's always going to keep evolving. Even if you put technology or you fix something, if you fix something, it might actually break something else. So that's why we always have to keep that continuous improvement mindset going. Even after I leave, I try to teach my clients to keep going, and that sometimes they come back and they need more help. Sometimes they figure it out on their own. So either way, I like either one of those engagements. My hope is that I'm not always going to be with that business to help them out. Hopefully I teach them enough to where they're always looking to the future and trying to figure out how to get to that next level.
Folks, we're chatting here with Lauren Hisey, and she is founder of her own firm, Lauren Hisey Consulting. Lauren, you mentioned technology there, and I'm curious whether you believe businesses are maybe have unrealistic expectations about what technology will do for them.
Some do, yes, some do. I have a client that I started working with early this year. Things kind of fizzled out for a little bit, but now we're re-engaging. An example there is they've been trying. You hear all about digital transformation or any type of transformation going on. So they've been trying to move a lot of their manual processes into some type of automation and try to use that technology. And everything at their whole transformation, however you want to call it, is kind of fizzled out. So that's a perfect example that sometimes throwing technology at the problem isn't always going to fix it. And sometimes even when, how we get on the phone and like your example with the bank, sometimes people want to just talk to a real human being. And unfortunately, sometimes I think they're getting a little smart now with the AI improvements that it sounds like you are talking to a human when you're still really talking to a robot behind the scenes there.
Right.
Yeah. So I think sometimes people put too much hope into the technology when really it could just be something as fixing a simple process or just engaging with your employees more to understand what are they doing. And sometimes whenever we take technology, we get rid of the technology. I have one case study there where we ended up getting rid of the technology, fixing things. And then once we fixed things, we added the technology in and they were able to work. They were able to see, oh yeah, technology was actually making things worse instead of making it better. Mm.
So let's talk about a success story. I'd love it if you would share a success story maybe you're particularly proud of.
Yeah, one of my biggest ones that I'd like to talk about is, especially if I'm using continuous improvement with any type of technology here, is that I had a client that had their onboarding process for their new clients, and it was getting pretty. I think it took about 40 days to onboard a new client, which is pretty horrible. And to get their databases set up for the clients. And you just go in and start talking. It was just most chaotic is probably the best word to throw at it. So I started talking to people. I was finding that the work was in the wrong place. I had people that were in marketing doing operations work, salespeople were doing the marketing work. And so nobody was yet. And that was one of the reasons why it was just so horrible. So after we fixed the process, we just went in and put the work in the right place, put the people doing the right work. So we had salespeople doing sales, marketing doing marketing, operations doing what they needed to do. And then once we were able to do that, then we put technology into that too. So we added in automation, made things very seamless for the customer or for their client. And so it just looked like, really like everything was just working smoothly and everybody and all the customers were happier because they weren't firefighting anymore and cost went down. And then so what was really interesting there is that the onboarding process went from 40 days down to 2 days. And that's it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
And they, I think the savings we had there was probably about $600,000 within the first 6 months. And revenue, it wasn't really a revenue increase. It was more like revenue, what I call revenue acceleration. So, clients have already signed that contract, but instead of, waiting 40 days for everything to get ready, they were able to start collecting their revenue from that contract within about 2 weeks after onboarding, instead of waiting another 40, maybe another 6 months. They were just collecting it a lot faster. So that means it's more money in their pockets faster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, that if you just look at the cost, it was only $600,000 within that first 6 months, but then that starts to add up year after year. So that's, it's pretty remarkable when you start, after you go back and you maybe talk with your past clients to see that they're still doing things and they're still thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, we can go and improve this. Or maybe if they have a customer complaining about something, about the same thing for a few times, well, let's go and fix this up. See what's going on. So one of the things we do too with continuous improvement is we put in those metrics or those checkpoints along a process. So if something does happen to go wrong, you can catch it a lot quicker so that you can fix it a lot quicker. Because at the end of the day, we want to make our customers happy. If our customers aren't happy, our employees aren't happy, then we really don't have much of a business.
For sure. Lauren Hisey's with us, folks. Lauren Hisey Consulting. That's a great story because it's not just Lauren, the $600,000 in hard revenue enhancement or revenue acceleration, but there's a intangible cost to that. I mean, you put a bad taste in your customer's mouth right on the very beginning, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So great story. So you mentioned medium-sized businesses. So let's just review again for folks as we wrap up here. The kinds of things they should be looking for that would lead them to maybe thinking they need to pick up the phone and give you a call.
Yeah, definitely. So when I'm speaking, what I'm looking for is if I start talking to clients and they are prospective clients and they say, oh, gosh, we've been trying to fix this issue forever, or our costs keep rising, even though we've decreased the amount of hours, or we've tried to put more manpower at it and we just can't fix the problem, or they're starting to see revenue go down because their customers are leaving because customers are so dissatisfied. Those are the type of people that I usually end up working with, because then that gives me a chance to understand and uncover what's really going on in their business.
That's great. Lauren Hisey with Lauren Hisey Consulting. Lauren, this has been great. Congratulations on your work. But before we let you go, we got to get to the most important question, which is how folks that want to get in touch with you can do that.
Yeah, definitely. I always send people over to my website. It's laurenhiseyconsulting.com. The best place to get me there. There's a contact form, or if you want to set up a time to speak with me, you can do that right there as well. That's usually the best way to get hold of me.
Great. Lauren Hisey, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Folks, just a quick thought for you. If you've got some headaches that involve administrative tasks that you need to outsource that you really shouldn't be working on, that maybe you should get somebody else to work on so you can focus on things that are really more important, maybe some bookkeeping issues, some marketing issues, I've got an answer that involves picking up the phone and calling S.E. Escobedo over at Office Angels. Now, S.E.'s Angels have been working virtually for 20 years, and they're used to flying in virtually, getting the job done, and flying back out. And they work on an ongoing or as-needed basis. And S.E. has a whole team of angels that are terrific, and I know that personally. So give her a call at 770-442-9246 and let her help your problems there. Go to officeangels.us for more information if you're too shy to call, but I just encourage you to call. And also, folks, as we wrap up here, just a quick reminder that you can find this show on all the major podcast apps. North Fulton Business Radio is the search term. And you can go to northfultonbusinessradio.com to find our complete archive of shows. We're coming up on show number 300, and we'd love it if you would give us a review wherever you find the show. It's not about us. It's about our guests. It helps people find the show and people that might need the services of Lauren and some of the other guests that we've had over the years. We're also on social media, North Fulton BRX on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So connect with us there as well. So for my guest, Lauren Hisey, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.